While you're taking that 1 second, I have the last 2 bites of my English muffin.
So, Greg, speaking of mesh networks, I just interviewed Skycoin again, the 3rd time, and they've developed hardware. So none of this mobile stuff. They actually developed these. They're calling them miners, but they're like routers built into them. I should see if they're available to talk sometime, especially if you're interested in opening maybe an Asian Pacific office, because they're in Shanghai. You know, obviously, again, this will roll out after our chains, develop. But once we, that would be the next evolution, right? Is the meshing.
Very good.
Cool. All right.
Very good. I'd love to talk to them. Absolutely.
All right. Well, we can get rolling.
Yeah. Okay. Well, welcome to. Is today the 6th or the 7th?
7th.
The 7th. Oh my God. Welcome to the February 7th, 2018 edition of the rchain Community Hangout. We have a lot to talk about. Just got off with an Epicenter interview. Nash Foster and I had a really fun time chatting with the Epicenter folks. Really enjoyed that conversation. And look for it. I guess it drops next Tuesday, or possibly even yeah, I think it drops next Tuesday. But look for that. I'd love, because we're having so much fun on the technical discussions, if we could dive right into technical updates. Meta, are you up for that?
Always.
Awesome.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I have a really great update to provide today. So start off with how the SDK release has been received by the community. We have 43 downloads so far of the SDK package from Docker Hub so far. Of course, I don't have any idea how many users are doing a get from GitHub and building on their own and playing with the package. So just get Docker Hub. We've got 43 downloads. We have 1,100 visitors so far to the developer sites. That's really terrific. Most of the referrals are coming in from Medium, but a majority of the visitors are direct. So they're just going straight to developer.rchain.coop without necessarily having a referral link. And we deployed our forums just yesterday to the developer site. So those forums are up and live. We are working with Kelly Foster and myself are working to identify moderators. So we'll be looking for moderators for those forums. In addition to the core development team, obviously, those moderators can always escalate to the internal development team for technical answers on certain questions. So that's some good news in terms of what we've pushed out. The compiler team is building a normalizer and sorting for Rolang terms, and they're also investigating a written Rolang interpreter for estimating contract costs. So that's moving the ball down the field on contract estimation in terms of running the contract, and going to interpret the Rolang language as itself to determine what it's going to cost to execute. Also, they also met with the virtual machine team, the VM team, to determine how hard or easy it would be to do opcode costing, and discovered because of the architecture of the VM should be very, very simple for them to for the team to implement basically process level costing, because it's concurrency versus actual parallelism. So I think I said that correctly. Maybe I said it wrong. I might have had it backwards, but
I think you got it right. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Good. Thank you. The Node team is making great progress on building the Alpha Node API. We hope that the next release, I'll be working with Chris to try to scope and spec out that release, what's in it. I'm waiting to see if I can get the VM to a place where it can run Hello World. Later on in the VM status, you'll see that they're pushing really hard to get to a place in the virtual machine where they can run a very simple hello.world.rho. And I'd like to then integrate that flavor of the virtual machine into the node and then cut a release. I need to know from the VM team if they can do that. I need to know from the VM team if they can get that piece done, and then we'll have to sort out how the two are going to come together with a very simple node API. So that's what the next release is shaping up, hopefully by the end of February, but I need to hear from the VM team if they can get that done. Let's see, we've got code coverage in place, which is great. It's running across all the projects right now. The storage team has done a great job. They have 89% code coverage. You can go see those code coverage reports when you look in a pull request in the storage team. You'll see that all the reporting is right there. So great job there. The team is also working on, they just talked to me this morning about simplifying our build process to use a single SBT, so we can, instead of having SBT files in all the sub-projects, really roll them up and simplify the build process so we get to a place where we're deploying a single rchain package, right? This was a kind of a mission that we had set out on earlier to say we wanted a really simple experience for people to download our software, and it will, everything that you need will be in one package, right? So it's just get the Docker and you're good to go, or build from source and get the entire tar and you're good to go, making things very, very easy for developers and node operators alike to interact with our software. Our greenery and path to regex ports are done. Now we're integrating the two, and we think that we may have to either look at later on enhancing our regex, enhancing the regex functionality that we have, because there's some quirks with it, but that's proceeding very nicely. And we're moving on to implementing the tuple space in Scala. So that work is being specified, and lots of great questions on kind of bolting down the specification for rchain. This has been, I'm really turning my attention to this now, where I am pushing on the guys to get all open questions answered, because that is bringing in a lot of unknowns into the roadmap, and I don't like that. So I want all those questions bolted down. I want to know what it is we're building, and that way I can inform everybody what the details of what's in Mercury, right? So that's really been a push on my end to get everything spec'd out and written up on the wiki. And as I said, you know, the Rosette team, they had to rewrite the location class, but the rewrite went pretty smoothly. And now they're really pushing to run the hello.world.rho contract in the VM. And I'm hopeful that they can get that done. So then I can include that in the next release of Node. Opening it up for questions.
I have a question about the Hello World contract.
Mm-hmm.
Could you specify kind of like what it would kind of look like from from the command line perspective? So you compile, you've got some kind of status coming on, and then you're going to issue some transaction, right? And then it's going to return some result. Is that basically how it's going to work?
I don't know yet. I wish I could tell you that, but what I want to see is how far the guys can get and what they can give me. So I'm pushing to try. What I would like to see is that we have a Node API that we could pass it RBL file, and the VM could actually run the RBL file. If they can't get to that point, maybe we could pass it a binary opcode, and then the VM could run the binary opcode. So that's what I'd like. That's what kind of I'm envisioning in my mind, depending on how far the VM guys get.
Yeah, the last time I did that, you just copy the output of the compiler RBL code into the Rosette VM, and it runs.
Right,
Yeah,
we're talking about the Roscala VM.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we're talking about the Roscala VM. So this is the Scala VM, not the C++ VM, right? So this is the re-implementation in Scala. And I would say I wouldn't even want to pass it directly to the VM, right? Thinking about it from a one step above, node operators wouldn't actually pass it directly to the VM. They would use a node API to run some contract in theory, right? So I would want a node API that would take in a file and then pass that to the VM. So that's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, what we really want to see is you pass it some .rho.
Yes,
and
yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Ultimately, want to see it pass the .rho, but we're not there yet. So we want to get there. So it might be .rbl, it might be an RBL, but in essence, it's the Hello World contract that we're trying to run in the VM. So maybe it's with the compiler, I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah, understood. Yeah.
Any questions? More questions? Going once, going twice.
I know that there's some ongoing efforts through back channels, I've heard there's some ongoing efforts to look at what if one can do a version without the Rosette VM. And I just wanted to say that architecture is possible, and I can share a little bit of my experience. So this was exactly the architecture that I used in BizTalk. So essentially, what you do is you pack a bunch of stuff into the tuple space. You kind of overload the tuple space, and you can certainly do it that way. And that's how we wrote and deployed BizTalk for a lot of business applications. The tuple space becomes really, really fat. And when I tried the same thing with inside the Java VM, the issue is that the Java VM is wildly interconnected. So things that we thought would be relatively safe compilation units ended up being gigabytes. And so this is in fact the raison d'etre for the Rosette VM was a cleaner computational model where we had a better handle on what ended up being a compilation unit that didn't have this wild interconnection all throughout the JVM. So I just want to say you can kind of do a skunkworks sort of thing where you have a tuple space implementation, whether it's in JavaScript or Python or take your pick, and then you can compile Rolang down to Python plus tuple space or JavaScript plus tuple space. It is doable, but experience has shown that when you take that path, you end up being more wildly embedded into the computational model than you might think. So that's just a heads up for people who might be headed in that direction. And that's for anyone in the community. I strongly encourage people to go and explore that and see for themselves what it feels like. So if there's anyone out there who wants to go build, a Rolang to Python compiler, that's how you do it, and to get off the ground, so that you didn't have to have a dependency on the Rosette VM or some other kind of VM. Likewise, you could do the same for JavaScript. You could do the same for Erlang or whatever. Just to bootstrap a quick and dirty compiler, you just build a tuple space that has a notion of suspension on get. And by the way, there are lots and lots of existing tuple space libraries out there. I lost count of all the different tuple space libraries there were. But you could certainly go and do that, and anyone who wants to, go explore that and get a feel for how that would work. But after you've done that, come back and let's compare notes as to how wildly interconnected you get into the native computational environment. Anyway, sorry.
I would want to talk to you more about it, Greg, because I'm curious as to if there's any requirements in Rosette that help separate the compilation model away from the JVM.
Yeah. What happens is the whole computational model becomes encapsulated just in the RBL. You're not. So the Rosette continuation is not the Java continuation.
Okay.
And that's it's like, if you could easily build, as I did, on top of the Scala delimited continuations library, but it turns out that thing is just awful because of the way the Java stuff is all threaded. It's all wildly entangled, and so you suck in JVM state that you would never have thought you suck in. And the only way I know how to fix this is to build specialized serializers. And that is a tough job and really easy to get wrong, which is why it turns out to be more cost effective to just build your own VM on top of the Java VM.
Now, is this true if you use an actor model other than Rosette?
I mean, that part doesn't matter so much. what we're really trying to do is to insulate. So you want a VM that is a little bit more disciplined in terms of how it organizes the pointers all throughout the rest of the computation, is what it comes down to. If there are various disciplines, architectures on the dependency graph of all the components, which are either going to lead you to more wildly interconnected or more isolated stuff. With Rosette VM, we'd already thought about, chopping things up into contexts, and those contexts give you this way of essentially chopping up the pointer trees. It's a very natural thing, and it was something I had thought they were doing with the delimited continuations library, but that turned out not to be the case. So it's not so much about the model of computation. Well, how do I say this? It is about the model of computation, but it's about how the model of computation relates to interdependency versus isolation.
So would something like Rust lend itself to?
I don't have enough experience with Rust. Presumably, if Rust has done their architecture right, Rust would be a fairly decent host. So you could implement a tuple space on top of Rust and then do a straight up Rolang to Rust compiler. So basically, Rolang to Rust plus tuple space should be a relatively straightforward project. You ought to be able to kick that out in about 2 or 3 weeks.
Awesome. I'm sure it'll take me 2 years.
No, but you could get a hello world compiling in about 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, staring at our existing compiler and then doing something similar should be straightforward. Sorry, Meta, that was a bit of a soapbox, but
no, it was terrific. Okay, thank you. Is there anything else you want to chat about? Okay, that wraps it up for me.
Thank you. That was fantastic. Really appreciate the technical updates. Lawrence, do you have some updates for us?
Always. Lots and lots of good stuff. So from a just quick co-op stuff, we had a meeting with some community managers today. So Patrick and I are starting to gather. And then we had a good kickoff in San Francisco. We're looking for Seattle. We've got a couple more cities. I've got London teed up. So we're really starting to formalize these so that we can do them sort of a tail end after the SDK releases, something scheduled like a week or two afterwards, so that we're always able to bring the community more updates, hands-on, at least talking to people, and have somebody who continues to build community around the world. On feedback, I continue to get feedback, and I've got it from some folks that you know, Greg. And this is all positive because it means people are paying attention. They do continue to stress that we need better and more examples, and I bring this up with Meta and Nash around the complexity of the language and more how-tos. So I look at that as opportunity for us to continue to reach out to the community, provide better guidelines, and it's something from a holding standpoint. I'm also funding because I'm talking to a lot of e-learning companies. So switching to holdings, we should announce early next week our new name. We've got 3 projects in the pipeline that I should be able to at least give some names on, which is all good, that we'll be funding. I am meeting probably 3 times a week with fund managers. So a lot of our funding is going to be funds of funds. So existing traditional money, smart money out of China, as Greg likes to call it, that are coming and asking this. They love the story. They love the community story. And they love about what they're hearing about the governance conference for our chain. Our story, and Patrick said this the best, sorry, this is a little soapbox, is we are the best known under the radar blockchain project. We don't overhype, we don't overcommit, we just deliver. And that feedback comes back to us in every direction, and everybody that I talk to So it's extremely positive. I'm inking a deal with an economist because we absolutely have lots and lots of conversations around, how do you manage gas pricing, or in our case, phlogiston? What does it mean when you're starting to do atomic swaps between coins? All of these things, we want to be the center of gravity for all of these conversations because it grows and builds our community in a way that's meaningful for this community, and we want to give it away, right? We want to give away the top level information so that people can go and build good businesses on it, that we can take investments, that people will build on our chain. I met with a really interesting stablecoin this morning, and we're going to ink a deal with them. So there's actually a fourth deal that has got some, again, picks and shovels, very basic stuff that you need to make the ecosystem work. And they're completely enamored with what they've learned about our chain and the way that it will scale. So very fast update from me. So thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Lawrence. That's wonderful. That's really, really good news. Greg Heiss, did you want to also give an update on the venture side?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you, Greg. Hello, everybody. Things are going fast and furious with us. We're down in San Francisco for the next couple of days, working on a few deals. We're looking forward to seeing everybody at the governance forum. We'll be talking a lot more about kind of what we've got in the pipe. So it's been amazing when we start to talk about the story, just like Lawrence was mentioning with our chain and what happens with that. And so, from just really getting going in the last couple of weeks, I would say, I don't know, there's probably 10 or 12 companies in our pipeline right now. We're probably close to 4 of them that we will have done, I would say, in the next 2 weeks. They're coming so fast that we are bringing on staff to help us as well. So we're going to make an announcement of an analyst that we're bringing on to help go really deep into the crypto side of things and the tokenomics, as we call them, on the deal flow that we're doing. We're going deep and heavy into a few different verticals, one on the entertainment, on the media side, as well as looking at just the same type of stuff that Lawrence is talking about. The pick and shovel things are there. We're really going further into 2 clean energy and 1 a clean energy commodity trading company we're meeting with, which is really fascinating. Greg, I want to connect you with those guys because that's one that I'm super excited about. But tough to make a lot of announcements, as Lawrence mentioned, until we sort of get those term sheets in and done. But you're going to see a lot of it coming. On the office space, I can make a quick update on that. We are progressing forward as fast as we can. We don't have a lease yet, so I can't really talk about the exact location, but we mentioned Seattle and the Pioneer Square area, and having the rchain co-op folks there and an incubator of such. So we're super excited about that. And that's another thing that we're hoping to be able to share with the community next week at the forum here in Seattle. So, I could probably go on and on forever, but I don't want to bore everybody, but it's going really well. So we're excited.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you both. I mean, it's just so good to see the community development and the amount of people who are ready to build on top of our chain. This is what makes me really happy, and I think it's necessary. I think I've mentioned this a couple of times, but it's worth bearing in mind that when Apple's App Store launched, they had 500 applications from the get-go. Now, I don't think that there's any way by December that we're going to have 500 applications on top of our chain. But if we had 50, which is quite a stretch goal, that would be pretty cool. if we have 15, that would still be pretty cool. Because some of the scope and the scale of these applications is really very impressive. You know, as you mentioned,
15 we can do, Greg.
15 we can do.
I would say
50 is a bit of a stretch goal.
50 is impractical. So
I hear
Greg,
you. I totally hear you. But I just want people to understand, you know, that, you know, so what the industry expectations are, you know, and why we're moving so aggressively on this front, is that people get a sense of that.
One other thing, Greg, and I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Greg Heiss again from Reflective. One thing that's really helped, and I would encourage the community to continue to push deal flow our way, and I'm sure it's going to Holdings as well. We really appreciate that. I think deal flow is the most important thing. If we have, like we at least at Reflective have made the mandate, we're going to be in 12 companies by the end of the year at minimum. We look at it as we probably have to speak to 50 companies a month to get there. So if you add that up, we're talking about a lot of folks that we have to talk to, and we're tapping every resource we can for those deals. So I would encourage the community to reach out and direct message me, or find any of the partners, whether it's Steve, Kevin, or David, to reach out if you've got something that you see that's interesting. Send it our way. We would love to take a look at it.
So if I may as well, I mean, Greg, and both Gregs here, I mean, are we talking about companies that are interested in doing ICOs on our chain, or swaps for, like, for example, like, let's say, you know, our chain launches in December, and then you have 30 projects at least willing to swap over from their Ethereum tokens to our chain tokens, right? Because, I mean, I would still think that those companies are 2 years out from developing those applications, but you would at least have an ecosystem of tokens going.
Yeah, so, you're right, Christian. We've talked about this, and you're dead spot on. We are certainly talking to folks at that stage. Sorry, Greg. Sorry to interrupt.
No, absolutely. That's one set of considerations. But also, I mean, you know, the primary set of considerations, at least from the cooperative's point of view, is you know, are the applications, you know, building upon our chain, right? Are they helping us elaborate and refine the requirements for the RChain platform? Are they fitting together in a way where, you know, the applications support each other and support the platform? So these are the kinds of things that, in addition to sort of timing and tokenomics and that kind of thing, that we want to make sure we're evaluating for.
For sure, 100% agree.
Yeah. So to that end, I had a really Rudy and Harper. Hey, Rudy, want to turn your camera on for a second? Rudy introduced me to Kent Baki, who's the CEO of La Marzocca, who has their distribution center here in Seattle, over in Ballard. One of the things that was I don't know if people know what La Marzocca is, but if you have espresso in the United States or Europe or just about anywhere in the world, your espresso was probably made on a La Marzocca machine.
When you come to the governance conference, join me here for a day, only be a day, in Queen Anne, and you can come to the showroom, which is actually where they actually serve it in their cafe, and you can tour about 6 different machines.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we've got an agreement that La Marzocca is going to, we're gonna buy a La Marzocca machine for the offices, for RChain offices. So that's so we're excited about that. But what's more interesting is that we're hoping to engage, or we are engaging in a dialogue to get La Marzocca into the crypto world. And this to me is exciting because it's very much in alignment with what I've been saying. Let's go for the last mile first, right? Let's go for, you know, buying your coffee. Exactly. You know, buying your groceries. Exactly. So I was delighted that Rudy brokered this conversation, and I think it's part of a larger conversation. So, and I think that fits in with what you Greg and Lawrence were talking about in terms of just pushing deal flow your way. I think what we're going to start seeing is that people come out of the woodworks because it finally clicks. They finally go, oh, that's what this is about. And they really jump on board and help us build. And that's the way it's going to have to work if we're going to scale, because it's got to go out to the leaves. So I was delighted by that, and also completely selfishly delighted that the rchain offices will have its own La Marcozzo machine. That's a big deal.
I'm gonna come live there, dude. I have an espresso and people are freaking out. A La Marcozzo?
Yes, that's right. Woo! So to that end, since I got so much positive feedback from this community and other corners with respect to rchain office space and buying a building, I have engaged a realtor from Windermere to help us start investigating office space. And I just so that people know what I'm thinking about, and the vision that I have is not like a traditional corporate building, not like a traditional corporate offices. I'm imagining something that's more like a house or a home, where people from all over the world, especially the crypto nomads, like Castle, yes. The crypto nomads like Vlad or Martin Beasy or Vitalik even can come and crash and code and cohabitate and collaborate and innovate together, and rather than sort of more traditional office space. So that's what we're looking for. Yes, cybersecurity absolutely is a concern. So we have to think through a lot of those kinds of things, but this is the kind of building that we're looking for, and I think this is the environment that we're aiming for. And again, it's also in alignment with some of our larger goals. We're very much looking for a commitment to an architecture that's carbon neutral, that is energy efficient, these kinds of things. Essentially a green architecture. And it's a lot harder for traditional corporate space to be a green architecture. rchain farm, yes, that's right.
We're on the eastern side of the state, and it'll be free. There is a hostel in Fremont that takes Bitcoin, so they might be a good acquisition target. But that's a lot of money, Greg. It's you're controlling the purse strings on co-op.
No, we want to keep it very, very close to the ground in terms of budget. What the aim of getting a building here is to undercut rent, because rent sucks in this area, and it's actually cheaper to buy than it is to rent. So that's what led me down this path to begin with. But so I have engaged a realtor on the basis of the feedback I got, and we're starting to look at buildings. So that's an update on that side. So now let's turn to the governance forum. The first thing I want to say is that we received I think 8 requests for travel support. 2 of them did not go to the requests.rchain@gmail.com. They went to my email, and I'm glad I spotted them, because otherwise, currently if I leave my email unattended for an hour, I have over 100 unread messages. So if you send email that I'm not looking for, it's quite likely to get lost, which is why I set up the request@rchain. So we have Kenny, who's on camera there, and we have Lilia. Are you on camera, Lilia?
Not quite.
Understood, but she's there, And there we go. So we have Kenny and Lilia, and they are helping with 6 of the 8 support requests. And because we have so few, unless you have already bought your tickets or done your travel accommodations, we'll do that for you. So we get the best deals. But I know that there were some people who were expecting to be reimbursed, so we'll let them go ahead and go through that way. If we did have a larger volume, then we would have set up some kind of budgeting process, and it would have been through reimbursement rather than us taking on the travel logistics. But please, if you have requested support, then you are absolutely, you should be working with either Kenny or Lilia or myself or the 3 of us. And we will get you sorted out, and we have to get you sorted out because we have just a few days left before the governance forum. So please.
Greg, can I add something? There is one person who needs visa, and that's Waji. I think his name is Chidindu Ojimadu.
Yes. Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Okay.
If you want to paste that in the chat, paste his written name in the chat. Then so what about do we need to send him a letter of invitation, Jean?
I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
I'll find out.
Okay. Yeah. So he can refer to this rchain community hangout. He's officially invited as a member, as an active and productive member of the co-op. He's officially invited, but we'll get a formal letter out to him if he needs that as a part of his visa. Anything else on the travel support for the governance forum? Okay. All right. So we have the agenda more or less laid out. We've been sort of juggling some of the logistics. With luck, we'll get that agenda out in the next day or so for people in the community to review and make comments on. Let's see, is there anything else about the governance forum that people want to ask about? Because I want to share just a few comments about the governance forum, but I want to take some questions.
Hi, Greg. I've got a question.
Yes.
It's Chantal. Hi.
Hey.
A couple of weeks ago, we spoke in the active members meeting about dialing in for attendees who can't make it there physically, and setting up potentially audio for people who are dialing in to ask questions. Is there any update on that, or is there any information as to how people can do that?
Christian,
Yes.
what do we know about this setup?
So I wasn't informed about this, but this should be completely doable. I did it last time we were in Vancouver. We just need to know if there's a projector, because you kind of have to look at the person you're talking to. You know what I mean? I have to consider how to set up the room, because last time
Yeah,
what I'm saying
understood.
Is
there's some logistics, but we can sort out the logistics. But yes, we will be set up to support that all throughout the conference.
Okay, great. And maybe it's worth putting the dial-in details or how to on the website or in any of the groups.
Yeah, it's just going to be through Zoom. It's just going to be through the Zoom room, and that's pretty much it. So, I guess the most logical thing to do is there should be certain sections of the day devoted to okay, we're going to have 30 minutes in which people online can ask questions. And does that make sense? Instead of, that's the way I think it should be done, because it's kind of difficult if you have 100 people in the room all asking questions, and then you also everyone turn your attention to everyone online. It all that needs to be sorted out beforehand. You know what I mean?
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I think what I was hoping was that at the end of each major section, so we would take the last 15 minutes check in with anyone who has been dialed in and see if they want to engage. So something like that. So taking the natural chunks in the existing format, and just taking a few minutes at the end to get feedback. So we'll go back over the existing program and build that in, and then put that out for feedback as well. So thanks for that, Chantal. That's a good refinement to the whole structure. Appreciate that. Any other questions?
Is there still time for people to sign up for lightning talks?
I don't know. I will have to look and see if there's any spots left. We had to move. We already had to move some sections to a satellite time before the conference, because things are getting so tight. But maybe we can rejigger stuff.
Last I checked on the agenda in Google Docs, there's plenty of rooms still for lightning talks.
Okay. All right. All right.
I got a question about governance.
Oh, go for it.
Will there be some talks about how to secure or retrieve locked funds?
That wasn't on the agenda specifically, but if that's a specific item that you want to add to the agenda, you can take it as.
Patrick, do you have a specific? Sorry, Nathan, do you have a specific question you'd like to ask at the end of this?
Sure, if that's open.
Maybe we could wait till the end, and you can put it in chat. And it's a good question.
Sure.
Cool. Very good. Very good. Any other questions then about the governance forum? Okay, so I have drafted a welcome letter for the rchain governance. And I want to share the draft with you now. So let me get a link and get some feedback on this, and because it will go out to the membership very shortly here. Hang on a second. Okay, there's, oops, wrong one. Sorry, I don't like this focus stealing. There we go. So there's a link to the Google Docs, and then I'll go over it just briefly here. Shouldn't take but a second to read it and get some feedback. So, dear rchain member, there was a moment when I found myself in the company of some remarkable people doing remarkable things. It was such a profound moment that I felt compelled to reflect on the series of choices it took to walk through the door to be amongst these people. As I thought about all the choices that led me to where I was, I had this experience of being lifted up and looking down on many people finding themselves in a similar situation, wondering how they got where they were and what was the sequence of choices that led them here. I remember seeing as clearly as if it were in a letter addressed directly to me, the relationship between the governance of myself and the governance of this larger self, this body of remarkable people doing remarkable things. These were or are somehow one and the same. It was as if the code that allowed my very cells to conduct themselves as a body was somehow the code of conduct in a body organized to carry out a remarkable purpose. I want to invite you to reflect on the choices that have led you here to rchain and the first rchain governance forum, not the least of which is because you are one of those remarkable people. And what rchain is doing is nothing short of remarkable. We are demonstrating to each other this strange bootstrap process. We are remembering the code of conduct that will bring about the next level of organization, a higher self that is as unlikely as it is necessary to get through the circumstances and consequences of how humans have lived on the planet Earth for the last 150 years. To make it through this very narrow passage is going to require collectives that can move with a grace and fluidity surpassing our finest dancers, while thinking with a clarity surpassing our finest minds, and feeling with the compassion of the Sangha ready to become the next Buddha. If only this were exaggeration or hyperbole, our lives and the lives of our loved ones might be much easier. Unfortunately, as Al Gore says, the inconvenient truth is that it is not. Yet, what rchain Cooperative has already accomplished together in the last year is a testament to the remarkable nature of this organization and the remarkable nature of each and every one of its members. This is one of the many indications that we can manifest what we need to be able to handle the weather. During the forum, you will be exposed to a variety of technologies, not just blockchain, that are aimed at nurturing and accelerating this process of remembering the code that will allow us to conduct ourselves as part of this larger, more capable self. Please meet them with your best skepticism, your own sense of openness, and your own goodwill. And most importantly, remember to have fun and play with whatever comes your way. Nothing worth doing takes itself too seriously. Love to all beings, Greg, President, rchain Co-op. Any feedback would be most welcome if you can help me, get some comments in there, and help others, to know that we're seeking comments on this draft. I would appreciate it.
Thanks, Greg. Can I echo just some of the points you made there? So Greg and I have been chatting off and on about this for, I don't know, several months at least. And this, what you just articulated there is the reason that I do what I do. I mean, there's a lot of talk in this space about prices and investments and those kinds of things. But really, in my opinion, none of that matters very much at all. The real critical thing here is that we have an opportunity to be able to do things that our species has never been able to do before. And that is truly, truly remarkable. Like, that's really why we're here. And it does sound fanciful and amazing. But if you really think about it, how did 1 trillion or 2 trillion cells, single autonomous little organisms, create you? That happened. That's what we're doing here. We're designing the mechanism so that all of us together can create something that we're a part of, that's bigger than ourselves. That thing that is being created will be able to do things in this world, in this universe, that haven't been able to be done before. And it's really an exciting opportunity.
Amen. Hey, women.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you. That was very well said. I really, really appreciate it. Yeah, and that's exactly the point. Wonderful. Let's see. Is there anything else we want to touch on, or can we yield back some time to the community?
Greg, I would like to mention something about the conversation yesterday with Kent Bakke.
Oh, please, go ahead.
I had a realization about that, and I've known Kent for 35 years. I was involved in the espresso machine business early on, and I've known all of those old guys there are old friends of mine. They now hire a bunch of young people, and so a lot of times you ask them what's going on here, and they say, we don't know. These people just work here and they decide what the marketing is going to be, and so on and so forth. But their core customer tends to fall under the age of 40, and they tend to be in the third wave coffee business. The older guys that are there drink darker coffee. So it's a weird blend of cultures. So when I mentioned, you know, we now have an assignment to get together with the financial guy at La Marzocco, as you recall. And he's a guy that sends me negative stuff about cryptocurrency as well as positive stuff. And I have one coffee appointment per month with him. He says I'm his only appointment where we just meet to jack our jaws, you know. So he will listen to you, and he will take it all in. What's interesting is when we left there yesterday, Kent, who had doubts about the whole thing and plenty of questions, as do most people who don't know anything about it, said at the end, we'll figure this out. We'll bring the espresso machine before we get the money if that's what's necessary. They're not concerned about that. So this is the interesting thing. And when we were talking, I said, well, Kent, last time I was talking about money with Greg, and Greg stopped me and said, it's not about money. And he gave me some sort of speech where I saw rainbows and so forth. And I wanted to have that same speech with you. And so it's kind of interesting because both of the guys, both Greg and Kent, are like-minded in their feeling about community, even though, you know, Kent is older, and it's an old school business, but they've got a lot of new business involved. So it's a meshing of those two worlds, as is crypto with the meshing with the fiat currency world, for instance. So like termites, we went in there and made a little headway, and you know, things will change. And so I think it's interesting because it brings in a very large coffee community. There are 8 companies connected to La Marzocco that are in 100 countries. And Kent's kind of like the Pope of espresso in a way. So it's a way of bringing this community in. He's coming to the governance conference as a guest. So
Yes.
So it's an interesting thing that it all happened after a 1-hour chat. So I think that's just beautiful.
It was really I had a similar feeling when I met with Kent as I had when I met with Richard Olson, who was one of the founders of Licca. When Richard gave his talk at the Perm Winter School, I turned to Lilia and Chris and I said, he gets it. He understands. And I feel like, you know, in many ways, what we're trying to do is to create this network of people who are seeing what Kenny was talking about, right? This opportunity to coordinate in a fundamentally different way.
Yep.
And that's to me that's very encouraging that network is beginning to poke itself through.
I should mention too that it sounds very inspiring, but it's actually very messy in the weeds of this today. So just to know, if you hear the words dysfunction, confusion, ambiguity, you're in the right place.
Exactly. Exactly.
Just want to make sure that's clear.
Yes. Cool. Thank you for the comments. I can see that they're rolling in. I appreciate all of that. So unless there's any other comments,
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Going kind of building on the point of community that Kenny and we're all talking about now. And I love the Casper update this week, Greg. And I'm wondering if you could just confirm that something that you've mentioned before, which is that maybe what rchain's Casper can do is create 2 roles for validators, one a promoter role that doesn't require staking, and one a proposer role that does, and both groups can benefit from the validation roles. Was that just a thought, or is that like how deeply committed is rchain's version of Casper to that? Because I really like the idea of allowing the pool of promoters who don't have coin to stake or enough coin to stake to still benefit from engaging in the consensus process.
So if I understand what you're asking, the proposal that I had with respect to political capital required that all of those who are able to, to use the verbs promote, propose, and join are staked validators. That's the only, you only have political capital if you're a staked validator. So there isn't a proposal that I know of on the table where you have maybe Alex Bulkin put together a version where you have proposers that are not staked validators. I can't remember his proposal enough, but he has a kind of delegated model where that might work. But I certainly haven't been proposing that, and the reason has to do with security. Yeah. So every time you have a non-staked, it has to cost to engage the protocol. If it doesn't cost to engage the protocol, then you've opened yourself up to DOS. Right? If I can engage the protocol and just hammer away with a bunch of messages, even if those messages are more or less meaningless, if the agents that are executing the protocol have to attend to all those messages, then you can bring the computation to its knees. So as a result, you have to establish some kind of cost to engage the protocol at any point.
I think
Thanks
that
for the
there should
clarification.
be some universal basic income, but you have to have strong, unique identity before you can do that.
Yeah.
Or make the accessible to everyone.
Yeah, I think I see the analogy. Good. Thanks for this discussion. Nathan, if you want to jump over to my Zoom room and just have a quick chat with, I think Lawrence was willing to have a chat.
Can I just, hi, sorry, can I just give a quick update on the active member status before we sign off?
Yes, of course. Yes, sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's all right. I just wanted to touch on a couple of points that have happened in the last week. So for Telegram, we're almost at 1,200 members, which is great. We're trying to grow that. We've been talking about, or Navneet has given us a quick update about the KYC process, and because it was flagged, because we're looking at how we can scale this. So Navneet has been working on this, and he's going to dive a little bit deeper into what he's thinking after this meeting now, when we have our weekly catch-ups. We also spoke about the onboarding process for developers. I think as we see the community grow and more interest being gained, we're also looking at how we can efficiently scale this. So there are a couple of outstanding issues on GitHub around that. Speaking of moving into or broadening the community, we've had someone actually post the interview with Lawrence and Nash in China on 3 popular not YouTube video channels, because YouTube is a bit of an issue for people to access there. So we're slowly expanding there as well. Then we had a conversation about the Blockchain Africa conference this year, because some of the members thought it would be a good opportunity to be able to sponsor that, or make a presence of some sort, as it is an opportunity, seen as an opportunity market. So that's something that we'll see if we can elaborate a little bit more on that today, because I know there was a question around the value of rchain attending that. So just a couple of things that we'll be talking about today. Like I said, the Blockchain Africa conference and the KYC process. And we're going to have a real-time demo for a usable budgeting app that was created. And then if we have some time left, we're going to speak about defining the value of decision-making processes, and potentially the allocation of budgets, and how do we define value and how we distribute budgets.
Great. That's quite exciting, actually. Thank you for that update.
And I understand it's going to be in an alternate Zoom room because the regular room is busy. So I put it in the chat.
Okay. I didn't see it go to the chat. Are you sure it went to everyone?
No, it didn't. He sent it to me personally. I just got to switch the toggle there, Jim.
Also, Mernal had an update. Did you want to give that, Mernal?
Yeah, be really quick. The friends that I brought in from Amazon, Dropbox, Microsoft, etc., the marketing guys, they've been in very active conversations with holdings, ventures, Pyrofex, etc. We've had amazing conversations with everyone. We've also done a lot of outreach to external developers. The confluence of all of that's going to lead to a document that they're putting together. Again, not meant to be prescriptive, but more suggestive about, a more formalized way in which we could perform both marketing and dev outreach. So we'll distribute that to everyone in the coming week. Before
one thing I noticed is that co-op hasn't actually been represented in the discussion. So maybe it would be a good idea to arrange a meeting with these guys in co-op.
Patrick has been in the meeting too.
I mean, from a technical perspective.
Yep, absolutely. The idea was just to sort of get, a basis document first, and it's going to be distributed widely to everyone. And, it's a work in process, but, progress. But, just wanted to let you guys know it's going along well and should come out sometime.
Sweet. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay, well, I tried very hard to get us out the door before 12. But as always, we have a lot to say. So looking forward to, let's see, today is the 7th. So 7 days from now will be the 14th. So that will be we'll have our hangout, and then the next day begins the governance forum. So looking forward to seeing you at the next hangout, and as many as possibly can make it to the governance forum. Ciao for now, folks.
See y'all.
See ya.